Latvia Weekly, your independent guide to the news in Latvia, with your hosts, Otto Tabuns and Joe Horgan. Labdien visiem, and welcome to episode number 93 of the Latvia Weekly podcast. We are not Otto Tabuns and Joe Horgan today. I am Joe Horgan, but Otto Tabuns unfortunately was not able to make it today. But I have something just as good. I have some of my students and one of my wonderful colleagues here at Jelgava Spirula State Gymnasium, because today is the first day of school. So I would like to welcome on the show to the left Mr. Niks Murans. In the middle, Miss Patricia Pablaka. In the kind of center there, Mr. Markus Broslavs Mojniks. And then on the right, Mr. Matis Richards Vilsons. So hello, everyone. How are you doing on this first day of school?
I'm doing good.
Don't sound too excited, Marcus.
Just, all the kind of stress, but not stress, just a lot of work to do.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Speaking of a lot of work to do, so Matis, we have had you on the show a few times before. The very first time we had you on the show was exactly a year ago on September 1st, and you were starting the year as a Classes ārzemnieki, which is, so in America, we do have homeroom teachers, but it's nowhere near the same as being an ārzemnieki. Here in Latvia, as all of the students know right here, it is a lot more like being a parent. And I remember you called them your disciples, I think, either disciples
proteges.
Or proteges. That's right, proteges. So how has it gone so far being an ārzemnieki?
Yeah, there's this saying that ignorance is bliss, and I think last year it was about me because I had a few ideas of how is it going to be. But this year I know much more, and therefore I'm much more nervous than I was last year. Because I started studying in this new program called Mācītspēks this summer, this iespējamā misija and University of Latvia. So now I know much more about how the lessons should be structured, what should I do with the students, which means that I also need to prepare a lot more. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm a bit nervous, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now for the rest of my students right here, so Niks and Patricia, they are entering the 12th grade, which I cannot believe. It makes me feel very, very old because I remember it feels like yesterday when they were walking into my classroom for the very first time. They're two of my original media students, so they've been in my media program for all 3 years that it's been here. So they're going off to university next year. So I don't want to sound like your grandparents, your obnoxious grandparents. What are you going to do when you grow up? But do you have any kind of idea what you might be doing for next year yet?
I have quite a few pointers. I'm thinking about the University of Latvia, probably law, sociology, or something like that. And if not, I'm just going to go study abroad.
And Patricia, what about for you?
I have zero clue what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
So I have this year to figure it out. Hopefully I figure something out. I hope so.
Yeah. So we've talked on the show before a little bit about whether people decide to stay in Latvia for going to university, whether they decide to go somewhere else. I know, Matis, you studied in the UK for a couple of years, didn't you? And then thankfully you came back to Latvia armed with all the knowledge that you know. So would you suggest to the youth to follow that same route, maybe to go study in a foreign country for some time and then come back with kind of a different perspective? Do you think it was worthwhile for you?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend you going abroad and study somewhere in Europe, hopefully, but I guess not in the UK because as far as I know, this is the last year when you can get that student loan. You can't get it after this year, so perhaps no UK for Latvian students anymore, but I know that there are many nice places where my other classmates are they have been still studying there, like Netherlands, Germany, Denmark. Yeah, I would recommend you going there.
Now, Markus, on the other hand, he is entering 10th grade, and in Latvia, 10th grade is the beginning of what we call Vidusskola, which is very confusing, by the way, because Vidusskola translates directly. If you just throw it through a not so smart translator, it translates into middle school. So it's always very funny when I have 19-year-old students saying, like, "Oh yeah, I'm in middle school right now," and it's kind of like, what happened to you? But no. It's just a direct translation. It goes better with the American idea of high school or just secondary school, kind of internationally. So secondary school here begins in 10th grade. And so Marcus, this is a very interesting year for you and for all of your teachers as well, because this is the very first year that the new curriculum standards are being put into place. This is part of the Skola 2030 or School 2030 program. So everything's going to look quite a bit different for you. So now you're not going to have instead of priekšmetas, which which are like study subjects, you're going to have courses now. It's going to be a little bit more like university, and you're going to get a final grade at the end of the entire thing. So the semester grades, the year grades are just going to be informative.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new system. So how well do you feel like you understand the new system going into it, you and your classmates? Do you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of what you are about to face?
Well, I personally understand it quite well, but of course there are a lot of misunderstandings, and but yeah, it's new experience for everybody, I think.
Are you excited that things are going to be a little bit different than they were for Patricia and for Nix in terms of the way that you will be learning?
Well, yes, but actually no. But it's a new experience, and I like to think that things change for good.
Now, we've talked about this on the show before, but the idea behind these new curriculum standards is that the education system will be more student-based. It will allow for a lot more differentiation between the class that students have to pick. I know for Nix, you and Patricia, my biggest shock, about the Latvian education system has always been just how many study subjects you have. How many, for example, last year, how many study subjects did you have in one semester?
Yeah, something like that. We had 14.
Yeah, that is crazy because at least in America, we would only have a maximum. If we were like a crazy person, we'd have 7 study subjects in one semester. So at least the new with the new system, it seems like that's being cut down to some extent, and you're going to be able to go into things in more depth. I think that's personally a good thing. So for teacher Matis, now you like I have been having to do a lot of preparing for this, with our new materials. Are you teaching 7th or 10th graders this year?
No, thankfully, I don't have any 7th graders or 10th graders. Yeah, so
Okay.
I will let the system start working, and then I'll catch up next year when everyone will be less anxious about it.
Okay, well, that's very lucky because I do have 10th graders. I have 10th grade media students and then also English students. So I will let you guys all know how it goes. But, I think pretty much everyone agrees that the Latvian education system has not been perfect up to now. Everyone wants there to be some kind of change, but the question is exactly how do we change it? So we will see if these new curriculum standards work out well. Grading is going to be different as well. There's going to be, instead of just like a final grade at the end of every unit, there's going to be kind of a pre-test, at the beginning of every unit, and then there's going to be formative grading throughout it. Now, Nick, I see you look disgusted. For you and Patricia or Patricia, it's going to continue pretty much the way it is, but for the new students, it's going to be a bit different. So.
Yeah, that gave me German vibes because we have that type of grading in German.
Yeah, well, for language classes, we already do something a little bit similar to that anyway. But yeah, these new curriculum standards, that is one of the big things that is being talked about this year as we start the new study year. The other big thing, though, so this year is kind of a huge litmus test for all of us teachers and students. Also because of this little pandemic that's going around, this COVID-19, which people have kind of been talking about recently. So obviously, the big question that every country in the world, every school in the world is facing right now is, what do we do about this pandemic? A lot of countries, a lot of states have decided to go just with distance learning. Also in the United States, I know some people whose districts have decided to go with completely in-person learning, and some parents have decided to homeschool their students this year. Homeschooling is a lot more popular in America than it is in Latvia in general, but a lot of people who would never have considered homeschooling their kids before are deciding to do so this year because they just don't feel that it is safe. So what we are doing here in Latvia, there are some different options that schools have. schools can decide basically based on how big the school is to either go partially in person with some online learning, or they can go completely in person. We in Jelgava, as far as I know, all the schools have decided that we're going to go with in-person learning. That was a city decision, as far as I understand. And here in our school, what will be very interesting is that the idea is that all of your classes are going to count as one ārzemnieki, which is this word. I don't know how to exactly translate it into English. It's like a household.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this word ārzemnieki, it's used when it comes to the COVID measures that people outside of one household, they can only meet in like 4 people in a group at a different table. So your classes are counting as a ārzemnieki. First of all, do you guys feel like your class is a household? Because you do study with each other the entire day. It's different from America. In America, everyone's mixed together in different classes. That happens for math and for a few other subjects like your second language. But in general, you're with the same students all day, every day. So do you kind of feel like you're a household at this point? That you're kind of like some kind of family, Yes?
Yes.
Yes, our class is like super close, so
Mhm.
we definitely feel like one household.
Yeah. What for you? So for you, Marcus, you had the same class all through 7th through 9th grade, and now in 10th grade, there's a lot of people who switch from one class to another. In your case, do you kind of feel like this is something new, or do you feel like it's more or less the same people and it's something continuous?
Well, it's hard for me to say because already in ninth grade,
Mm-hmm.
I started to loosen up from my class because I spent more time with the media and parliament,
Mm-hmm.
the school's parliament, and it was more that than the class.
Okay.
So I wasn't really in the class group as much as in other places.
Yeah, you had your own ārzemnieki,
Yeah.
but anyway, so the idea is that your class will not switch rooms very much throughout the day. It'll switch just a maximum of one time. So you'll be pretty much in the same room. We're going to have block lessons. So normally, for example, Patricia and Nick's, their class, I have 4 lessons with them a week. So normally we would have it on 2 different days or 3 different days, those 4 lessons. Now you're going to have me for 4 hours in a row of English, or so when we say hours, the word stunda in Latvian means both lesson and hour. So I always get a little bit mixed up. But so a study hour, an academic hour in high school is 40 minutes. So you will have me for 4 40-minute lessons in a row. How do you feel about that?
It's better than some other lessons.
Okay, well, but in general, that you're going to have these block lessons. You're going to have these very long study sessions with just one subject or with one teacher. Are you generally in favor of this?
Yeah, I think that's much better because you get to study on one thing instead of just having like 4 different lessons, the least, in a day. Like you will have English, German, French. We had them in the same day sometimes even.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Patricia?
I don't really like it. I get tired easily,
Mhm.
and like if I have like 4 lessons in a row, the same 4 lessons, it gets tiring, and I think it's not great because like especially for languages, how can you learn another language in one day, like that many lessons?
Yeah,
And then
instead
not
of
have it. Like for languages, it's like with any musical instrument, you need
Yeah.
to practice it every day,
Mhm.
not like only one day.
No, I agree. Especially for language, I like having it broken out throughout the week. I also don't like having, for example, if I have you guys on, usually we have languages on 2 different days a week, and there's two. No. I didn't finish my sentence. I love having you guys in class. I mean, I don't like having you guys 2 days in a row. So if I have you like on Wednesday and then Thursday, I like having you guys, for example, on Tuesday and Thursday, or Wednesday and Friday, something like that. Obviously I like you guys. Otherwise I wouldn't have invited you on my podcast. So don't worry. Now, I want to hear from Marcus. Well, how do you feel about these block lessons? Are you looking forward to having, for example, I am both your English and your media teacher. You could theoretically have me 8 lessons in a row on one day. Are you looking forward to seeing me for that much in one day?
Oh, well, for you, yeah. But for other teachers, it might be hard because my brain usually doesn't like a lot of the same information in a row.
Mhm.
It needs to eat the information slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you don't want to get information oh my gosh, what's the word? When you're digesting something, and I'm the English teacher, I can't remember the word. Disingestion? Oh my gosh. Anyway, moving on. Matis. Now, we see it from a different perspective because it's one thing to have the same teacher for 4 lessons in a row, but when you have the same students for 4 lessons in a row, that makes planning a lot more interesting. And I've already, tried my best to think, how can I do that? How can I make it interesting? Are you excited for this? Do you see this more as an opportunity, or do you see this more as kind of an annoyance and something that we're just going to have to kind of live with and work around?
Well, I think it's both, because those block lessons are definitely good for group works or project works, but like we are not trained actors. It's hard for us teachers to keep student attention for like 8 hours, which basically means that at the end of the day we will give more work to them, so do it individually rather than us showing us in front of the classroom something. So yeah, I agree to the previously mentioned arguments that it's better if the lessons are split over the week, and you can reflect about what you studied today at home, do some homework, that you see this subject more than once a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's definitely going to, just like the pandemic originally, during Talmatsibo or distance learning, it made us have to be more creative people. This will also make us be more creative people, I think, as well. So we'll see how it goes. Now, another story which comes up every single year. This is nothing new, at least for the last 8 or 9 years or so here in Latvia. Every single year there is a shortage of teachers by the last weeks of August. That is very, very well known, because job listings, will go up usually for different schools earlier in the summer, late in the spring, and at least as of the last count I heard was about a week and a half ago. There were still hundreds of job openings that were unfilled throughout the country, especially with the Latvian language. So we already talked about this a little bit. Now, funny story. So I posted this on the Facebook page, on the Latvia Weekly Facebook page, which if you are not a follower to, you should go there, because we have stories of the day every single day. So we have a story of the day every day, and I posted this one about the job openings, and I made a link to LSM, Latvian Public Media, and a couple days later we started getting all these job applications, and looks like somebody's practicing drumming outside, and so Otto and Chris, who are 2 other people who work on the podcast, they're asking me like, Joe, why are we getting job CVs and everything for a language teacher? And I looked back, so Facebook's algorithm had decided that story of the day was actually a job posting. So and I looked, and so there was this little button that said like apply now. So we actually got some CVs, like there was somebody from Australia that applied to be like the language teacher at Latvia Weekly. There was somebody from India who applied, and they actually sent in their CVs, and they were like real people. They weren't robots or anything like that. So my apologies to anybody who applied for to be Latvia Weekly's inexplicable language teacher. Unfortunately, if we needed a language teacher, I already am a language teacher anyway, and even Otto's done some language teaching before. Chris is a language teacher too, so we already have plenty of language teachers. But I'm glad that Facebook's algorithm is not that smart yet. But the non-joking matter, the non-laughing matter, is the fact that since these job openings are going unfilled, the teachers are going to be overworked even more than they already are, because if there's only 2 Latvian teachers, need to be 3, then they're going to have to take over more positions. We've talked about this before, but what do you guys think? So Nix, Patricia, and Marcus. So you are 3 bright young people who are trying to make up what you're going to do in your life. What would be a reason for you to want to become a teacher? Okay, because I know that none of you are thinking about it right now, but what would make you decide to become a teacher potentially?
I am actually thinking about it.
Oh, I'm so excited! This is I'm gonna play the little applause. I'm very, very excited, Nick. So Nick, then why are you thinking of becoming a teacher then? Because that's unusual.
Because my English is very nice. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, and the program at Latvian University has quite enough of budget spaces, which is basically the country pays for your studies, and I would love that. so I would not have to pay for them. And since, it just checks out. And also I enjoy teaching sometimes. Sometimes I'm just sarcastic. So yeah, so that's why I'm considering it.
Okay, that's excellent. Well, that just made my day because I did not know that, Nick. So, but Patricia, I know that you are currently not necessarily considering becoming a teacher. What would maybe make the teaching profession more attractive to you than it currently is now?
Well, me and Nick, we talked about being teachers at some school, like being colleagues and stuff. It would be really fun.
Wait, are you actually thinking of becoming a teacher too?
No, not really. But
Okay,
it would be fun,
I'd be very happy if you did. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe I could be a teacher because I enjoy youth work and I enjoy influencing others. Yeah, so I think it could be interesting, actually.
Okay, Marcus, are you thinking of becoming a teacher? I might be completely shocked by all of you guys, but
not really.
Okay.
Well, I don't know my general direction yet, but
yeah, you still got plenty of time. But
yeah, I've got lots of time, or so do I think. But I was generally more in the music production scene or in media in general. So yeah, something with media production.
Okay, yeah, but what do you think? Why do you think that so many young people don't want to become teachers? What could make it more attractive as a profession?
I don't think that people don't want to become a teacher, but it's just more of a soul thing. So there are a lot of things to do in life, so it might not be in the first plan.
Okay, and then Matis, now you are a young person who did decide to become a teacher. And now you've gone through 1 year, like you said, you are no longer ignorant. You know what it entails. So first of all, what attracted you to the profession in the first place? And second of all, do you think that you made the right choice?
Yeah, I had known this since, I think, high school, that I wanted to be a teacher, at least on a part-time job, because when I was in the 12th grade, my Latvian literature teacher allowed me to give some lessons to 10th graders, and I did it. I felt fine. I could hold their attention for 2 hours even when I was there on my own. So I was quite certain that I am able to do this. But after finishing uni, so it turned out that there was this vacant place for 30 lessons. Not 30 lessons, but for not a part-time job, but a proper job. So I decided to take it. I didn't regret this after the first year, although I felt the need to study a bit more because I hadn't studied any education before. I'm doing it now, so I'm glad. But yeah, I think this is the right choice, and as we can see, the trajectory of the teacher, the prestige of this profession, and the salaries as well, it's gonna be better in a few years. And when you finish your universities, I think we will have reached perhaps Estonian level. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you have decided to become a teacher, and we will move on a little bit now from some of these educational themes. One thing that I wanted to mention as well, which I'm not sure if we've talked about before, is that the financing model of not high school teachers. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it myself. Higher education teachers, so lecturers, at universities and other higher education institutions. So that has been confirmed at least temporarily. So us teachers at universities are going through this strange phenomenon right now, where we do have a slightly increased salary for lecturers at my level. I think it's something like 19 euros a month. So I can get like an extra couple cups of coffee or something. But it's only confirmed up until the end of the year. So in terms of next year's budget, we have no idea if it will continue or not. But that is the way that the financing timetable has gone. Okay, now it is time to talk about something I know that you guys do not love to talk about too much, because it is something that's taking up all of our minds. We brushed on it a little bit earlier, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic here in Latvia.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So just to give a little bit of a background on what the situation here in Latvia is. So it has been quite a while since we have recorded an episode of Latvia Weekly. So both Otto and myself, our schedules have not been able to line up. Also, Carlos, his and my schedule have not been able to line up for a number of reasons. So I apologize that it has been so long. So since the last time we recorded, the new cases here in Latvia. So we had 3 new cases in a day, 1 new case, 3, 3, 4, 0, 5, 18, 6, 9, 6, 12, 3, and then today there were 8 new cases of COVID-19 here in Latvia. Now, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The big question was it a smart idea to reopen schools? What do you guys think? Do you think that, do you feel safe, for example, coming to school? I mean, I know that you are here already. If you felt extremely unsafe, you probably might not have come. But do you think that it was the right move? Do you think that there could be another outbreak, for example? Do you think that simply having classes in the same room throughout the day is going to be effective? We will start with Matis. Do you think that this is the right move by the ministries to act as they have?
Yeah, I think so. And all the requirements and restrictions seem very rational to me. Although the only question I always wonder about, like, what about teachers? Because we go from one class to another, we don't have any masks.
And we're the ones who are more likely to actually catch COVID.
Yeah, because we spend there was at least 15 minutes in one class.
Yeah.
And then we walk around and perhaps spread it. I don't know. Hopefully no. Yeah, that's the only thing that worries me.
Yeah, and well, another thing actually going off of that. So the big question that keeps getting asked is so teachers or students also, if you have a runny nose, if you have a cough, you are supposed to stay home, which makes a lot of sense. The problem is that we are getting towards the time of the year where there are other reasons besides COVID-19 that you might have a runny nose, that you might have a cough. For example, the weather. So it's kind of this complex situation of what exactly do we do? Do we know should we just go get tested all the time every single day? Students who or teachers who do have some kind of runny nose or who do have some kind of sickness, they are expected to stay home and go to distance learning. Marcus, I want to see, what do you think? Do you think that this situation that we have right now is going to be sustainable? Do you think that this is going to work out? Do you feel safe the way things are going?
I feel safe. I have felt safe all this period because it really haven't disturbed me that much. Well, it's something to look at, but in Latvia especially, unlike in other places on Earth, but. I think, it's better to come to school to learn. Yeah. Because it's easier for me. But I think it might be, for these blocks, it might be a little bit distracting. And on top of the new system, as you mentioned earlier, it will be a completely different way of learning.
Yeah, definitely. Patricia and Nix, how do you guys feel? How does your class feel in general? Because you guys, like you mentioned, you have a very close class. You have a very small class also. How do people feel in the class? Do they think this is the right move? What is the kind of feeling there?
Well, for me, I've been sneezing throughout the whole summer because I have wonderful allergies. Yeah. And concluding that my family hasn't gotten sick, I would say I didn't have it in the summer. It was just allergies. So that's a fun thing. And other than that, I think our class feels fine because no one has traveled. No one was sneezing. Well, there was one sneeze. That was dangerous. No. Yeah. But other than that, I think we're fine.
Patricia, do you agree?
I agree. I think we're safe and our classmates feel fine. I even walked around with that thingy.
Disinfectant?
Yeah.
Were you disinfecting random people in the hallway?
No,
I hope not.
Only my classmates
Okay.
and our little SOTS classmates now.
What a world we live in, where people are just running around disinfecting each other.
Trying to stay safe, you know.
Yes, Matis.
By the way, have any of you done a COVID test before? Like, would you mind doing it on a regular basis?
Oh, geez, I have heard from what I've heard about the COVID test. It does not sound like a particularly pleasant experience having a Q-tip shoved up your nose.
I did it.
You did
I
it?
was a
Okay,
bit
so how was it?
ill
How was
in
it?
the
How was
summer,
it?
So it was real quick, and I got the answer the next day. But
yeah,
when they put that thing in your nose, you get some tears in your eyes. But only for a very short time.
I can't imagine. So, like in the National Football League, for example, or some other sports leagues in America, they have to have the test every single day. I just oh god, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could do it. But maybe you just get used to it after a while. So, if any of you have had the COVID test, you can let us know how it was for you. But I've heard different things from different people. Some people didn't mind it at all, actually, from what I've heard. But speaking of COVID, so moving on to a few other COVID-related issues. So one which was very, very interesting is that the Prime Minister, Krišjānis Kariņš, who, by the way, from what I've read recently, his approval ratings have been pretty high. And one source I read, it was something like along the lines of 70%, which is almost unthinkable for a Latvian Prime Minister to have such a high approval rating, especially in this. I can't promise that that's true. I might be misreading that, but I know that definitely his approval rating's been up. Actually, one very good way to know that his approval rating is pretty okay is that in the Riga City Council elections, which we'll talk about briefly in a short minute, he was actually featured on some of the posters. And usually they don't show a politician on the posters if they're not running for office unless they're actually, fairly popular. But I saw him like, Krišjānis Kariņš approves of this candidate. So, that's pretty good. But so far it seems like people have, been okay with the way that he has been handling the COVID-19 situation. Now, he mentioned recently in an interview that masks could become obligatory to wear in public as they have been in other countries. Now, as you guys know, as well as I, none of us are wearing a mask right now, first of all. It's very rare out in public to see somebody wearing a mask. If you notice somebody wearing a mask, it's like, oh my goodness, that person's wearing a mask. Whereas in, for example, my home country of America, in most places, you're not allowed to walk around without wearing a mask, especially if you're in like the supermarket or something like that. What do you guys think about this? So if it becomes obligatory here in Latvia, especially if the situation gets a little bit worse, as it very likely will be in a couple of months, do you think that people will have an easy time transitioning to mask wearing? I see you shaking your head, Patricia. So let's start with you. What do you think is going to happen with mask wearing here in Latvia?
The thing is, Latvians are ignorant.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. That is your opinion, not the show's.
I think if they start telling us that we need to wear masks in public, it's just not gonna happen.
Well, I can mention, it's not just Latvia necessarily, because we've seen, for example, huge protests in America. There was just a huge protest in Berlin a couple of days ago. And Germany is considered, one of these countries that usually, follows, regulations, things like that, where protesters, tried storming parliament. So, it's not just Latvia. I mean, there are people all over the world, and, everybody has them on their Facebook feed, for example, who are arguing everything about COVID-19, who think it might be a hoax, or that all of the measures are completely unnecessary. Matis, what do you think about, for example, people our age? Do you think that they're going to be willing to follow the mask wearing regulation?
I think if the punitive measures are implemented as well, then people will obey, because I think that's what happened in Lithuania, for example. Most of them were wearing masks. I think the people in shops weren't served if they weren't wearing them. So yeah, if there are some punishment, if there's punishment, and then people will obey. Yep. But just a quick remark about Prime Minister. I think historically it's been with Latvian politics that Prime Ministers in times of crisis usually have high rankings, ratings. Sorry. I think it was the same with Valdis Dombrovskis. He even got re-elected twice during the times of crisis. So which
is pretty unusual for anyone to get re-elected.
Yeah. I think that's because a current prime minister, he usually looks like a grown-up when compared to many of the people around him, and I think people just want to see that in times of like this.
Yeah. And so far things have been okay. I mean, Latvia has been recognized, as one of the countries that's been doing, quote unquote, the best during the pandemic. In a relative in a relative way, of course. Now, one other thing I want to mention about COVID, and I specifically want to hear Matis's take on this because economics is your field. So there has been a drop in the GDP. The gross domestic product, and that's no surprise because that's been happening pretty much everywhere in the world. There's been an economic, downturn because of COVID-19. So here in Latvia, for the second quarter of the year, it was an 8.9% decrease in GDP. And so far, what I've heard from different economists is that, that's not good, obviously, but it could be a whole lot worse because it was expected to be, even worse at the beginning of the economic crisis. What do you think, Matis? As somebody who studied economics, do you think that that analysis is correct? That it's not great, but it could be worse, or how do you see it?
Yeah, we are not the worst in Europe or the world, but we should compare Latvia to Estonia and Lithuania. And comparing that, we have had the highest GDP drop of 8%. I think Lithuania and Estonia have like 5 or 6%. But I read it's mostly because our economy is less export-based than their economy. So if we are exporting more, then we should feel these consequences a bit less. And that's perhaps something that we should be working on, help our businesses to export.
Okay. Well, that is just about it for COVID. So let us move on to Riga. So as you guys know, there was a city council election in Riga over the weekend. And Mr. Otto Talboons, he did an excellent full episode about this. So you can check it out on the Latvia Weekly SoundCloud. It'll be on the YouTube also fairly soon. So he did about an 18-minute rundown of what happened in the election, the results, also some of the irregularities which came up. And so the result, though, seems to be that Ārzemnieki by par progressivi, which is kind of a pretty wide-ranging party. It's so Latvia's Ārzemnieki, they started out. They ran in the last Riga City Council election as kind of a new party. They're something like a libertarian. We would see them in America having like kind of a libertarian, kind of a free market policy. Then Kusti by par, which joined in with them, they are kind of a center-left party that had a lot of people jumping ship from Vienotība. We've talked about this before. We're not going to go deeply into this. And then Progressivi, they are a progressive party which has not had very much electoral success the last few elections, but it looks like hitching their wagons with Ārzemnieki by par has worked out very well for them because now they will have, from what I understand, about something like 8 members going into the new...
I think it's 10 almost.
Into Riga City Council? Okay, yeah, I might have been wrong. But so the leader of Ārzemnieki by par progressivi in this election was Mr. Martin Stačis, who was a Saima deputy up until now, and it looks like he will indeed become the next mayor of Riga. And so he is. What's funny about this? I believe he's something like 38 years old, if I remember correctly. So he is seen as this kind of like young person who's going to be the mayor. But Mr. Ushakov's, the previous mayor of Riga, was so young when he took over that even after 10 years, he's still about the age of Mr. Stačis, who's now probably going to be taking over, which is kind of funny to me. He was just ridiculously young when he became mayor of Riga. And speaking of youth, so I read one analysis also that so for 3 of the new parties which are coming in, Ārzemnieki by par progressivi, Jauna Konservatīva partija, and Jauna Vienotība, so for 3 of the parties which will be entering the city council, so the average age for the deputies is all going to be under 40 for all of them. So this is definitely, for people who have been clamoring for years and years and years for new young politicians to come in, well, here we have it. So let's see what happens. And it looks like a coalition has more or less been agreed to in principle, and that will be a coalition which pretty much resembles the national coalition, Ārzemnieki by par, Jauna Vienotība, National Alliance, or Nacionālā apvienība in Latvian, and Jauna Konservatīva partija, minus KPVLV, which was a party spearheaded by the actor Artis Kaimiņš and the former lawyer Aldis Skobzems, who, well, I think he still technically counts as a lawyer, but he had his license taken away for reasons we will not get into right now, both of which are no longer really members of the party and did not do so well in this election. They got less than some of the parties, which typically get, in the low, less than 1%. So they will be leading this coalition. Saskinya, which was the party which gets called the quote-unquote Russian party, by a lot of media sources, because they technically, they traditionally have their base of support as the Russian-speaking minority here in Latvia, which is close to half of Riga's population. They did not do so well in this election. They came in second place, and they will not be able to continue their coalition, it looks like. But they will be challenging results in 2 precincts in Riga because there were some envelopes that were found unstamped. So for an envelope to count, it has to be officially stamped. So they were uncounted. So the Central Election Committee is asking the State Security Service to look into the situation and figure out what exactly was happening right there. And it is possible, from what I understand. So Otto was saying that they could have to do a revote in those two precincts, and that the coalition might have to be put on pause for a short amount of time. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the Riga City Council election because obviously Otto already covered it in detail. And for most of us in this room right now, we are not ārzemnieki, and we don't really get personally affected by this. But Matis, as I understand, you are ārzemnieks. You are somebody who lives in Riga and, like me, comes to Riga every day, or Jelgava every day. I used to. I don't do that anymore. But what is the feeling in Riga right now? Are people more or less satisfied? I know that there was a low turnout for this election, only about 40%. What is the general sense about this? Do people really care one way or the other?
Yeah, I think it's probably the best possible result for Riga that could happen, because the change was obviously needed, and the low turnout, I think, is mostly because the usual Saskaņa voters didn't come to the election because they couldn't find Nils Ušakovs in the voting list. Yeah, but I think it's the best possible result because those two parties, attīstībai, PAR and Progressive, together with Vienotība, they make this backbone or the core of coalition, and they can make decisions even without the fourth member of coalition. I think if there are some disagreements between Conservatives or the National Alliance, they can still get the votes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, for the rest of us, I mean, we are looking forward more to Jelgava's election, which will be happening next year, because usually in Latvia, municipal elections, they happen all at once. So all of the city councils throughout the country, they usually happen a year before the general election in spring or in early summer. And that was the case for this one. Riga would have happened then, but this counts as a emergency election or a extraordinary election for reasons we've gotten into before. I will not get into them now. But in Jelgava, as usual, it'll be happening just like it will be in Ventspils, just like it will be in Daugavpils, just like it will be in all the Novovadi throughout the country. Now, I've talked with Patricia about this before because she was on the show with Carlos and I a little bit earlier in the summer. But Nix, I believe that you will also be allowed to vote for the very first time in this election. This will probably be your first election that you're allowed to vote in.
Yeah.
Yep. Are you planning on actively following what will be happening here in Jelgava and then and voting as well? And will your classmates, do you think, also be actively following this?
I'm probably going to vote and follow up on what's going to happen in Jelgava. Mm-hmm. But there's also a chance that by the time the election comes, I'm going to live in Riga.
Ah, that's right. So you might have changed your declared address.
Yes,
officially.
hopefully.
Yeah. But in general, do you think... now, Marcus, I know you will probably not be old enough to vote in the election. No. But in general, do you think that people your age follow local politics very closely? Do you think that they're excited to vote? Do you think that they will come out to vote, especially the 11th and 12th graders who will be able to vote in this election? What do you guys think?
The majority of people our age doesn't they're not up to politics because no one really thinks about them in their spare time, and so if we don't got the age, then we can't really do anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend on the bubble you live in, because what about you guys? I think your friends would vote.
it's like very simply put, if the change that the lawmakers do doesn't concern you, you don't vote. But if it does concern you and you want to change something, then you vote.
Patricia?
I think our classmates will vote because we are very influenced by our politics teacher. She always says that if we have the ability to vote, then we have to. It's like our
Civic duty, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matis, this in Latvian we'd say vienaldzība, but this kind of like whateverness. I don't know. I don't know what the best word in English is. I am the worst English teacher in the world today. I'm thinking in Latvian more than I'm in English today. But this kind of apathy is the right word. This apathy towards politics. Obviously, this is something that is very depressing for us to hear because we are both in the kind of social studies field. Because I am originally a history teacher. You're an economics teacher. What do you think that we need to do to get people their age who will be voters very, very soon more interested in politics? Because that's actually part of the new curriculum standards. Part of the new curriculum standards is about this like social democratic look at trying to get people to be active citizens and increase their skills that way. What do you think we need to do to make them interested in politics and voting?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's apathy, because usually people have opinions, young people as well. Yeah, they have opinions, but perhaps they don't know what should they do, what is voting like, should I participate in politics, should I be a member of a party? They don't know these things, and well, since the new curriculum, politics wasn't a mandatory subject in high schools. It's gonna be now, at least partially. So I guess with interesting class activities, discussions, role plays, election like group works with various parties, I think we can make them think about politics more. We can educate them how to become a member of a party, why we should do it, why the rates in Latvia of political participation are so low, even compared to other Baltic neighbors, and that we should destigmatize being a member of a party.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can do something about this, because it is something that we need to change. Now, speaking of something to do a little bit with politics, this is very local politics in Riga. So there was a pretty big protest over the weekend about one quote unquote park. So it doesn't officially count as a park, from what I understand. It was a former bicycle track, this Marsa Park. And so apparently there were a lot of activists who wanted to turn this into an official city park, because the region of the city where it is found in, along Brīvības iela, does not really have a whole lot of green spaces. It does not really have a whole lot of parks. But the State Security Service wanted to build a new headquarters there, and they have gone ahead, torn down some trees. There were some protesters who were trying to block traffic yesterday, which is not very common to see in Latvia. Usually, as we've just discussed, Latvians are not usually the first people to jump out and protest the same way that you see in like France or Spain or Italy or some of the more Western European countries. But there were a number of protesters who were blocking traffic, who are trying to stop these trees from being cut down. And it looks like at least the State Security Service said they're going to try to protect most of the trees on that property, but they are going ahead and building their headquarters anyway. So, Matis, I will start with you as the resident ārzemnieks. How do you feel about this? Is this something that a lot of people in Riga feel strongly about, or is this a very vocal minority who cares deeply about this property?
Well, I haven't been following this case so much, but the only thing that I was wondering about is the timing of when they started to cut these trees. I think one of the people responsible for this said that they wait for the elections to pass and then started doing this. So in a way, they perhaps influenced the process of politics, which they shouldn't do. I also saw the pictures of policemen getting the protesters and taking them off the street. Perhaps that seemed reasonable to me if they were blocking the traffic. But yeah, I think it's a difficult question because there are many good arguments on both sides.
Okay, moving on. One more Riga story, which I want to mention. Which I'm sorry, my ārzemnieki here are falling asleep because they don't want hear only about Riga. But most of our listeners have some kind of connection with Riga one way or another. One new measure that is being implemented on public transit. There are quite a few routes where they're going to be having. So these are buses and trolleybus routes where they're going to have front entrance only. Now, for listeners from cities like Boston, this sounds very confusing because, of course, you have to enter through the front of the bus. How else can you pay for the ride? But in Latvia, the way the system works for public transportation, usually on a bus or tram or trolleybus, the doors open, in the front, the middle, and the back, and then you're supposed to take out your little, ticket, tap the little like beep thing. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
The little receiver, and it deducts the ride from your account, or however much money it is. But obviously, as everybody knows who has ever ridden public transportation before, there are a lot of people who just simply don't pay, and that's why people do come on. There are these conductors who come on. They check people's tickets, but it is fairly infrequent that they do that. It's not every single ride, so there are a lot of people who risk it and try not to get caught. So Riga Satiksme is trying to cut down on this, especially because they are not in the world's best financial shape right now, and so they're increasing the amount of buses where you can only enter through the front. So how do you guys feel about this? So I'm going to start with the students in here. So I know that all of you do go to Riga once in a while. Do you take the public transportation at all, or do you mostly walk? And do you think that this is going to be inconvenient? What do you guys think?
I mostly walk when I go to Riga because walking's better.
Yeah.
And also public transport, first of all, a lot of people. Second of all, money.
Mm-hmm.
And saving is great.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Okay. What? How do you feel, Marcus, about this?
When I go to Riga, I usually don't use public transport. But, in Jelgava and other cities, there are already these buses where you can enter only from the front.
Yeah.
So, it's more of a problem in Riga than in anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Matis, I believe that you use public transportation quite a bit. How do you feel that this is going to affect the everyday experience of public transportation?
I think it won't affect everyday experience, but I think the idea is good, but it's definitely wrong in this time of COVID, because it will, we are trying to eradicate crowding everywhere where we can, including schools. But now they just close the two other doors, and they want people to move in through the first one. So I think it's wrong at this point.
Yeah. Well, we will see. We'll see how it turns out, and if this will be a successful experiment. Now, a couple more national stories before we move on to international. So this is something which, if we had an episode last week, we would have. This would have been one of the main stories, because this is something that just about everybody in Latvia is talking about. So the same way that there's certain stories in America that everyone's talking about with the protests, this is one that people have a lot of strong opinions about. And for example, my wife keeps asking me, what do I feel, this way or the other about it, because really when you open up Facebook, especially for older people, there's a lot of people who've made statements about this. So this is a very interesting controversy. So there is this manor, and so it's called Brukna Manor, and there's this one priest, Mr. Andres Medinch, who has set up this kind of school, this kind of special school for very troubled boys. So people with very serious behavioral issues. And their parents have, agreed for them to go there. Obviously, it's not like, they've been kidnapped or anything like that. And so he makes them work very, very hard. They've renovated this manor very beautifully, and they've created this school and this place of worship. And there was a inspection by state services recently. This was towards the end of August, and they found that there were very troubling conditions there. It's become very, very controversial. And people have really split into kind of two camps about this. One is that he is being physically abusive, emotionally abusive to these children. Some of the children there who are, have been interviewed have said that they want to run away, that they don't like this. On the other hand, there are a lot of people who feel, people who have been supporting him, saying that, well, these boys, first of all, some of them are, lying about how how strict he is, how bad the conditions are, because they're troubled children anyway, and they lie, and that he's been helping them, and that this is kind of a like a last chance for them anyway. So there have been very, very strong opinions about this. I am not qualified personally to make a strong opinion about this. I know that people have, anyway, people have, have chimed in one way or another. So I'm waiting to hear more from the inspections and more from the officials. But for the four of you in here, is this something that you've also heard a lot about in your friend groups, in your circles, in your families? Is this something that at least for you, everyone's talking about? I see Marcus, you're shaking your head no?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, what about for Matis? Is this something that a lot of family members, a lot of friends have been talking about, posting about?
Yeah, I've heard about this a lot, including my family members. Like, this is a super sensitive topic.
Yeah.
And as you said, there are two camps with very strong opinions.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle because I'm not sure. I think, again, there are good arguments on both sides. So perhaps you should comment.
Yeah.
More.
So Nix and Patricia, has this been a story that you've been following, that you've heard about?
My family talked about this once, and that's about it.
Okay. Patricia?
This dramatic pause every time I take the microphone. I didn't know about this.
Okay.
This was the first time I heard about this going on.
So it seems to be a little bit of a generation gap issue, I guess. Something that the younger people haven't been talking about so much. But Matis?
I think if we really wanted, we could generalize this question about whether strict measures in education are sometimes permitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and it's no, it's difficult because as we're taught, I don't think in Matis specs, the program that you're in, they're told that we should be so strict and disciplinary with the students. But again, this is a special case. These aren't the kind of students who are able to thrive in a normal environment. And there's a lot of psychologists who have said that they do need very strict structure, very strict discipline. But the question is, of course, how much. So it is a story we will be following. Because it is something that just about everyone in Latvia is talking about, at least. Maybe not high school students, I guess, at least. But maybe you will be hearing about it in class. Maybe something that you will be discussing. So we can talk about this a bit later. One other national story before we get international. This is kind of a pet issue, at least for me. But I don't know. How many of you order things from something like AliExpress, different websites like that? I know Nick does. Okay. Any of you order things online? No. So for ordering things online from third countries. Okay, so places like America, China, places that are not part of the European Union. So there has been a minimum for which you have to pay the sales tax, value-added tax. In America we call it a sales tax. That minimum is being crossed out now, or is going away. So the minimum was 20 euros from what I understand, and now there will be no minimum. So because there were a lot of people who were buying some very cheap items from places like AliExpress, other countries, and and now you will have to pay a sales tax for that as well.
Where do we pay it? At the post office?
So
electronic declaration system, I think.
So the reason why there's a pet issue for me, and I know for some of you listening as well, because there's a lot of expats who listen to the show. So if you were getting a package from a place like America, so not a EU country. So if my parents are sending me, like a package with some presents for my daughter, for example, if the value is over, I believe it's 30 euros. So you have to fill out a declaration form. So but it's a crazy system. It used to be that just you pay like whatever the customs are right at the post office under the old system. So say you have to pay 5 euros in customs, you just boop, and then you get your package. Now the way the system works is that first of all, before they even give you the package, they give you a little note and it says that you have to go online and fill out the form and everything. That's great. But on the form, you have to say exactly what's in the package, exactly what the weight is, exactly what the value of the items are. So if you're buying something from an internet store, you already know that stuff because it's in the receipt. If your parents are sending you a gift, how in the world are you supposed to know what's in the package? So you have to. So it's ridiculous. So every time I get a gift, I've told my parents, please don't send me anything more than 30 euros, from relatives or whatever. You have to go to the post office. You have to ask them to please show you the box because they always say like, oh, no, you have to pay customs first. And I say, yes, I know, but I don't know what's in the box. So please show me the box. You have to take a photo of the box. you have to upload the photo. You actually have to upload the photo, because if you don't upload the photo, they need proof that, so you have to upload the photo, you have to write everything that's in it, you have to submit it, you have to wait for their system to process, and then you have to pay whatever it is. So, usually it's something like, €1, 40 cents or something like that. You have to pay it, and then you have to go back to the post office to get your package, and it can take a very long time. It is not a very nice system. Nobody likes it, and
It's very annoying.
Yeah, but that is the way it is, and I know that some of the listeners have to deal with this. So, would this deter you from buying anything from a third country?
Well, no, because I've already done that before. And for me, the post office was very nice. They sent me a text because I've signed up to that, so they use less paper. And in the text, they wrote down the number and also the weight of the items, and I knew what was in the package. So I just had to fill it out, and then I sent them a screenshot of me buying the Taylor Swift hoodie. In conclusion, I paid $20 in taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's happened for some stuff I bought as well. Now, from what I understand, there will be an option for certain companies that are part of some kind of system to be so that you can be able to pay the customs at the time when you check out. But be very careful about this, people, because I have bought things online before where I've paid the customs, and then this money, nobody knows where it goes because it hasn't gone into the Latvian state treasury, so I've had to pay the customs twice for some items that I've bought online before. So be very, very careful about this. Check with the store before you give them any money. How does this go into the customs system? So give them a call. Something like that, definitely. So Matis, as our resident economist here right now, do you think that this is going to fulfill the goal of cutting down on competition between the EU and third countries when it comes to internet orders, or do you think that this isn't going to have much of an effect at the end of the day?
Well, the process you described seemed so grotesque to me that I couldn't even process it. But in terms of economics, I think if there are 8 million packages every year sent to Latvia from third world countries, each one of it worth like 10, 20 euros, I guess it should be, the benefit of this should be like 5 million, right? 80 million in total.
I'm not sure exactly what the percentage of the tax is actually off the top of my head.
21.
Well, like 16 million additional revenue to budget seems nice, but I'm not sure whether it's worth going through all of that you described.
Well, they've promised the system's going to be streamlined, but I want to see it because it's at least for just getting gifts. It is a little bit miserable. So anyway, let us move on to our final section, and that is international news. And there's one kind of big international story. We've already mentioned the protests in Germany a little bit earlier, but the big news in terms of international, which everybody has been following very closely here in Latvia, is the situation in Belarus. So as we've talked about before, there have been massive protests in the country following the presidential election, which has been very hotly challenged. So Mr. Viktor Lukashenko, who is the president of Belarus, has claimed that he got, I believe it was 80% of the vote. The opposition candidates have said that that is completely untrue, and there have been massive protests. Very brutal crackdowns by the Belarusian security forces. If you want to hear more about what's been going on, I would strongly suggest that you guys listen to Christoph's Andresson's Eastern Border podcast. He's been covering it in great detail, what's going on over there right now. But from a Latvian perspective, so a few things that have been announced by the Latvian government. So first of all, the Latvian Business Development Agency, LIAA, they have announced a fast track for Belarusian businesses that want to relocate to Latvia. So basically a special streamlined process if they want to relocate their business from Belarus to Latvia. We made this a story of the day, I believe, yesterday, and there was actually a pretty lively discussion over whether this is fair. We had one business owner, a Latvian business owner, who said that they should fast track their own businesses because, he was complaining about the tax system here in Latvia and saying that's very unfair. Then also the president himself protested at the Freedom Monument about the situation in Belarus, the police crackdowns. 30 officials from Belarus have been banned from entering Latvia. So this is a pretty typical sanction that gets used against country, specifically Russia, after the Crimea situation in 2014. And then the Latvian government has given 150,000 euros to different NGOs to try to help the protesters in Belarus and improve civic society there. So what do you guys think about the situation? First of all, I know, Matis, this is something that you've been following. I have to imagine that you've been following the Belarus situation. But and Patricia, we had you on the show a few weeks ago, and you said that this was not something that that you were following too closely at the time. But for the students on the show right now, is this something that younger people have been paying a bit more attention to? Do you know anyone who's gone to any protests, for example?
I don't know anyone who has gone to any protests, but I've seen on the internet, on Instagram stories, people are posting posts about what's happening and other stuff. And also, I'm following the LSM Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, so I basically read the news anyway.
Yeah. So do you get most of your news from Instagram then?
Yeah.
Really? Is that pretty common for young people who follow the news? They follow on Instagram nowadays. Marcus?
No, well, yeah, but there are a lot of other sources.
Yeah.
Like, I usually just read information from a lot of sources and then make up my own mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, LSM, for example, or some of the newspapers, they have started to use Instagram. They've put stories, like news stories into Instagram pictures. So apparently, so you think that is an effective way to give the news to younger people who are on Instagram pretty frequently anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know at least on Facebook, so millennials like Matis, myself, and older generations have taken to Facebook more than Instagram, and a lot of people that we know get most of their news from Facebook, from the Facebook posts of different news organizations. So that is very interesting to hear. Yeah, so. It's hard to say what the situation will be in Belarus. It seems like the situation is starting to calm down a little bit. The kind of major partner behind Belarus, Russia, seems to be supporting the Belarusian government right now. So we will see if these protests do have very long legs. Anything you guys would like to mention about Belarus before we move on to our final moments? No. Okay. Now, our week in history. So it's been 2 weeks again since we've had an official show, but major thing that happened 31 years ago. So we celebrated the 31st anniversary of the Baltic Way. So this is a very famous protest. Most people who know about Latvia, who have heard about anything about Latvian history, they do know about this major protest where hundreds of thousands of people from the 3 Baltic countries joined together in this very, very long human chain all throughout the Baltic countries to protest the Soviet occupation of the Baltic countries at the time. And probably, I'm guessing some of you have none of us are old enough to have participated in the Baltic chain, in the Baltic Way, but probably most of you have relatives who did participate. Do any of you know somebody who has participated in the Baltic Way?
Probably some of our parents or grandparents.
But they don't talk about it necessarily though. It's not something that. Oh, okay, interesting. What was interesting to me is that last year, when it was the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way, we saw a lot more commemorative events. We saw a lot more, just different like stories about it, this and that. But this year it did kind of pass by a lot more quietly than I would have expected. So were you guys surprised about this at all?
Not really.
No?
People just like to make it about, the nice numbers like 30, 25, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like also our city's anniversary, Jelgava.
Yeah.
They do the same thing. It's like, oh, look, it's the 750th. Oh, look, it's the 750th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, by the way, I forgot to mention that happened on the 23rd of August, 1989. So yeah, that was the official date. But last thing that we need to mention, so we talked about the week in history, the week in the future. So one thing I can suggest to do this weekend, if you are anywhere near Jelgava, so we have the Mehatrons festival. So it's one of the many festivals in here in Jelgava. I feel like Jelgava is something like the city of festivals, because during the summer we have our city festival, we have the sand sculpture festival, we have the milk and honey festival, which a lot of the students here participated in. They built a boat out of milk boxes and floated it down the river. So that's one of our traditions here in Jelgava. It's very, very cool to go check out. But this is also a festival. This is a innovation festival. So there's going to be some robotics competitions. There's going to be some different displays. So this is throughout the 6th through 8th of September. And then there's going to be a bunch of events happening on the island in the middle of the city, Pastasala, on the 7th of September. Different competitions, robotics competitions. Apparently there's going to be some remote control car races, things like that. Are any of you planning on going to the festival this weekend, checking it out on Pastasala, seeing what's happening? No, you're not? Why not?
Well, there are so many things happening this week. I think like Homo Nos, Contemporary Theatre Festival,
also, yeah.
Riga, Riboka, many events in the new cultural place Tochka. So a lot to see.
Yeah. So no matter what this weekend, if you come to Jelgava or not, you will find something to do. So anyway, thank you so much, Nix, Patricia, Marcus, and Matisse. I know that all of you have a lot to do to get ready for tomorrow, especially Matisse and I, who will be teaching. But thank you for coming on the show. And thank all of you who listened or watched this as well. We will be back next week, me and probably Otto, but you'll never know. Until then, you can sign up on our Facebook page, subscribe on our YouTube, get the stories of the day every single day. And until then, we hope you have a wonderful week. So goodbye, everyone, and Visa Labovisium.